Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, wars and rumors of wars as both Russia and North Korea threaten to use nuclear weapons. The growing concern Vladimir Putin might actually use nuclear weapons in Ukraine as Russia suffers setbacks.
He's I believe, a cornered animal, and I think he's more and more dangerous, just what's happened in the last 24 hours.
And North Korea launching 7 missiles, calling them drills of its tactical nuclear operation units to wipe out the U.S. and South Korean targets. Terror in Israel, a murderous attack just before Israelis begin the annual Biblical Feast of Tabernacles. The threats from modern marijuana, it can even be life-threatening.
I had, thoughts of other people wanting to hurt me, thoughts of the only way of, being safe was to end my own life.
We'll explain what makes today's marijuana so dangerous. And it started in the Sunday school class of a storefront church. 25 years later, Bishop T.D. Jakes has held his last Woman Thou Art Loose conference.
We started Woman Thou Art Loose in a storefront church in Charleston, West Virginia. In a Sunday school class, it wasn't supposed to be anything but one class. Isn't it funny how you stumble into destiny?
We'll tell you who Bishop Jakes anointed to lead the next generation. Those stories and more today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with a growing nuclear threat from Russia as experts worry Vladimir Putin could unleash atomic weapons in Ukraine. That threat coming as Russia struck back at Ukraine for the attack on its bridge to Crimea. And a second nuclear warning from another country, North Korea, as it confirms its recent barrage of missiles launches were designed to simulate the use of its tactical battlefield nukes. Dale Hurd has our report.
North Korea says 7 missile launches, including 2 Sunday, were drills of its tactical nuclear operation units, training to wipe out U.S. and South Korean targets. Pyongyang is upset over recent U.S.-South Korean live-fire exercises in the region. Meanwhile, explosions rocked multiple Ukrainian cities today, including the capital of Kyiv, killing at least 8 people and injuring 24. The attack was Russian President Vladimir Putin's response to the Saturday explosion on the huge bridge connecting Russia to its annexed territory of Crimea. The attack believed to be the work of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky told his nation Russia is trying to wipe us off the face of the earth. This as there are growing fears Putin might use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Joe Biden recently warned that the risk of nuclear Armageddon is the highest it's been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called those comments reckless.
Those comments were reckless, and I think even more importantly, they demonstrate maybe one of the greatest foreign policy failures of the last decades, which was the failure to deter Vladimir Putin in the same way that the Trump administration did for 4 years.
The White House defended Biden's statement.
The president was reflecting the very high stakes that are in play right now. His comments were not based on new or fresh intelligence or new indications that Mr. Putin has made a decision to use nuclear weapons.
Former Joint Chiefs Chair Mike Mullen says Putin's nuclear threats have to be taken seriously.
He's I believe, a cornered animal, and I think he's more and more dangerous, just what's happened in the last 24 hours.
Meanwhile, a Biden foreign policy initiative in the Middle East is putting the American economy at risk. OPEC is cutting production in part because the White House is trying to make a nuclear deal with Iran, which many Arab nations oppose. Joe Biden is continuing to tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to try to keep gas prices lower in the weeks leading up to Election Day.
This is a failure of American policy. Joe Biden is directly responsible for the place that the world finds itself in energy. And frankly, his party, the progressive left, 25 years of thinking you were going to run the world on sunshine and windmills.
America's new energy crisis even has Barack Obama's Treasury Secretary blaming the White House.
Look, we made a mistake by canceling the Keystone Pipeline. We made a mistake by slowing down all kinds of permitting activity. We made a mistake by being hostile as a country to natural gas.
Gas prices are already hurting Democrats, and the last thing they need in the run-up to the midterms is another price increase. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
We turn now to Israel, where a manhunt is underway as Israeli police are searching for a terrorist who shot and killed a female border police officer. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the attack took place just before Israelis began their annual celebration of the Fall Feast of Tabernacles.
The manhunt by Israeli police included house-to-house searches for the terrorist, identified as a 22-year-old. On Monday, Palestinians attacked police as they continued their searches. The attack took place at a checkpoint in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Shuafat Saturday night.
We received a report at our dispatch center of a shooting attack at the checkpoint here. Our responders arrived on scene, treated 2 individuals, 1 critical and 1 with severe gunshot wounds. They have both been transported from the scene.
18-year-old Noa Lazar later died of her wounds. Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid sent condolences to Lazar's family and said, "We will not be silent and we will not rest until we bring the abominable killers to justice." This video shows the terrorist walking up to a group of soldiers and firing at point-blank range. After the attack, IDF Chief of Staff Avi Kohavi visited the scene and told the soldiers they were the first line of defense against terrorist attacks. For weeks, the IDF has launched Operation Break the Wave in Judea and Samaria. The operation conducts nightly raids designed to stop terror attacks before they happen. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, Pentagon leaders admit a serious recruiting crisis threatens U.S. military readiness for decades to come. Yet hundreds of service members continue to be discharged for refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccine. A group of Republican lawmakers want answers to why the vaccine mandate remains in place, even after the president publicly declared the pandemic over. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke recently spoke with a Coast Guard member continuing to serve, even with his job in limbo.
More than 2,500 members of the U.S. Coast Guard are on record refusing the COVID-19 vaccine. Many have been discharged, while others are still waiting on the official order. For those serving at Air Station Clearwater, Florida, they're spending the time they have left saving lives in search and rescue efforts following Hurricane Ian.
It's what I signed up to do. I have a passion for this job. I love the people I work with, and I love the impact that we have on the people we serve, on the people we help.
Chad Watson, a rescue swimmer in the U.S. Coast Guard, has served in the military for 18 years. With just 2 years left until retirement, he's now among those facing discharge.
Weighing the risk versus gain, we're taught to do that our whole career. Where the risk of getting COVID for me is very minimal with the effects that it has and what it can do to me, versus the vaccine where it was an unknown. So going back to the risk, why would I take an unknown risk when I know that there's minimal risk on something else?
GOP lawmakers are pushing to save the jobs of people like Watson.
The nature of and the effectiveness of the vaccine has evolved. It started with absolutely it stops the spread. I think it's pretty clear now that it doesn't stop the spread. It's more of a decision on what type of symptoms you want to incur or risk in your personal capacity, making it much more of a personal health decision.
In a recent letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Republicans on the House Armed Services Committee demanded answers on the status of the military's vaccine mandate. They point out that members of the armed forces are now one of only a few groups left in the executive branch still subject to termination for failure to take the vaccine. They also reference this statement from President Biden himself about the status of the pandemic.
The pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape.
So far, no movement from the military. Watson says he hopes the DoD will reverse the decision, not only for his own career, but due to the strain more discharges would put on those still serving.
In my job alone, we're understaffed by a lot. We're about 89% capacity of where we should be, and we're going to lose potentially 19 more from where we're currently at if they discharge us and release us from active duty.
Republicans say this will be a top priority if they take back the House and Senate in November. In the meantime, they wait on answers from the Pentagon. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Coming out, warnings about the dangers of today's marijuana. It is not your father's weed because it's much more dangerous, even life-threatening in some situations. We'll explain why when we come back. President Biden's announcement of pardons for federal marijuana possession last week came even as health experts, along with former marijuana users, are both warning about the high potency of today's weed. The combination of a stronger product plus states legalizing the drug can equal a dangerous situation. As medical reporter Lori Johnson shows us, the highly concentrated marijuana is leading to greater levels of addiction and mental health disorders.
Zach Plant started using marijuana to ease the stress in his life.
Like, I would much rather be high than be sober.
Months later, he entered the hospital for cannabis-induced psychosis because his marijuana use led Zach to lose touch with reality while experiencing hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia.
I had, thoughts of other people wanting to hurt me, thoughts of the only way of, being safe was to end my own life.
While his symptoms didn't last, doctors gave Zach a warning.
If you smoke marijuana again, there's a chance that you don't come out of psychosis. You go back into it and your brain may never recover.
Up until about 20 years ago, most marijuana contained comparatively low levels of THC, the ingredient that makes users high. Now that concentration can be 10 times greater, 30% THC, and in some cases, much more.
You can go to a gas station now where I live, and you will find a vape pen that has, we call them carts or, dab pens, and it will have like 50 times the potency of just smoking regular marijuana.
New research shows today's high-potency marijuana can be directly linked to a greater risk of mental illness and addiction.
Marijuana-induced psychosis and marijuana-induced schizophrenia is the single most well-replicated finding in schizophrenia research today.
And this super strong pot is widely available.
The legal pot shops are dedicated to selling very potent products. The only caveat to that is that the drugs on the street can have fentanyl laced in on occasion, which is obviously can be fatal.
So far, 37 states have legalized medical marijuana. In 19 of those states, recreational use is also legal. All of this rakes in billions of tax dollars for those state and local governments. Senator Chuck Schumer wants this to go national and introduced legislation in July to federally decriminalize marijuana and establish a federal cannabis tax.
We are taking steps in the Senate to right the wrongs of the failed war on drugs.
Yet many believe we need to revive this battle now more than ever.
Legalizing or promoting marijuana is not a solution. It's a nightmare.
Aubrey Adams speaks from personal experience.
While I've witnessed THC psychosis in my own son, and my husband was hearing voices after using 24% THC flower.
The two tried it when it became legal in their home state of Colorado, not knowing how powerful it had become.
The THC content is increasing on purpose. The legal marijuana industry has to addict their users. So the more potent the product, the more risk they are of becoming addicted, just like the tobacco industry did.
Indeed, the CDC estimates 1/3 of today's pot users are addicted.
Probably the majority who are using daily are addicted because they're not just using once a day. Typically, they're using several times a day.
Which can interfere with normal life.
Can't get off work without doing it. Can't go into work without doing it.
Scientists say marijuana addiction can also hamper the development of children and young adults.
And interfere with them developing careers and completing degrees and things like that.
It's been 2 years since Zach suffered from marijuana-induced psychosis, and he's doing great. He's glad to be off the drug and recommends others steer clear of it too.
For me, it was detrimental, and I don't think anybody can really know if it will have that effect on them, and so it's very risky to do.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Still ahead, a ministry legend is passing the torch after more than 25 years. T.D. Jakes had his final Women Thou Art Loosed conference. We'll show you who he is anointed to lead the next generation of ministry right after this. It started in a Sunday school classroom of a storefront church. 25 years later, a generation of women have found spiritual freedom through Bishop T.D. Jakes' Women Thou Art Loosed conferences. Bishop Jakes recently held his last conference before a huge crowd in Atlanta. He's also passed the torch, paving the way for even greater potential. Charlene Aaron was there for the grand finale.
More than 20,000 women from around the world converged on the Georgia World Congress Center for the final Woman Thou Art Loosed conference. While it marks the end of an era, many say the legacy of the global movement will live on for years to come. Celebration and applause filled the air as Bishop T.D. Jakes and his wife Sarita took center stage, recalling how the groundbreaking conference began.
We started Woman Thou Art Loosed in a storefront church in Charleston, West Virginia. In a Sunday school class, it wasn't supposed to be anything but one class. Isn't it funny how you stumble into destiny?
Jakes says he's amazed at what God has done with such a small beginning.
It's been an amazing journey. Never in 1,000 years would I have ever thought that it would have become what it is. It was totally God. The most fulfilling thing about Women Thou Art Loosed to me is to look into the eyes of the women and to see their healing.
Healing that many we spoke to say they personally experienced.
I really have no words to describe the blessings of the Lord that have been upon me. I feel free.
Others expressed heartfelt gratitude to Jakes and his family.
Bishop, thank you. First Lady Sarita, thank you for believing in women, believing in people that are somewhat left behind. I was one of those people after doing 17 and a half years in prison, getting out and realizing that, you know what, I can be loose.
And you are loose?
And I am loose, and I am free.
I don't even know what obstacles they had to get this many people together for this long, but we need it. And we're grateful.
During this grand finale, Bible teacher Priscilla Shire encouraged women to hold on to lessons learned from years of teaching.
Don't you dare leave 30 years of ministry and walk out of these doors and be weak-willed women pulled aside by every new age ideology and philosophy of our culture. Be strong.
Something she believes is part of the movement's legacy.
There are some doors that a woman like me or someone younger than me, we're not going to have to fight to push down, because there has been such an emphasis in this movement placed on the importance of women and what we bring to the body of Christ.
And on the final night of the conference, Jakes surprised his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, by anointing her to lead the next generation, as Woman Thou Art Loosed officially transitioned to Woman Evolve, the ministry Jakes Roberts has been leading for the past few years.
After 30 years of ministering Woman Thou Art Loosed, and 46 years of preaching the gospel, the time has come that I must decrease, that you might increase. As Samuel's horn of oil anointed David, I so anoint you. And with every drop of oil that falls upon your head, may the strength and the power of the Almighty God rest upon you.
Many expressed excitement for this new chapter.
I feel like it is the start. Sarah's story, as women, we all have stories. And I think with her father passing the baton, it gives us hope.
And a message to share far and wide.
So I think it's a fire that will spread. And I think the Spirit of God is on earth for revival. Sarah has a massive reach. We don't have women ministry in our country. So it will reach the world by reaching people that has a small impact. But it's a massive reach.
We're sharing everything. We're going to encourage people. We're going to start movements that are going to change people's lives.
In the end, it's the vision Jakes has had for women from the beginning.
I want them to not allow the traumas of their past to limit or incarcerate or intimidate them from pursuing their dreams. What I want them to do is own, and own land, vision, companies, materials, branding, moving forward so that they can model to their children.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Atlanta, Georgia.
And we'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day ahead, right after this. Time now for your Monday motivation. I leave you with this thought as we begin this week. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes purpose. Chasing perfection should never be the goal. It is better you keep working and trust God to reveal His purpose. With that word, make this a marvelous Monday and trust God for a fabulous rest of the week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.